Welcome to Fashionable Trash Talk. I'm your host, Ashley Aaliyah. Here I analyze and discuss the fashion of celebrities and anyone influential. Here is another request. This is the style evolution of Nicki Minaj. I'm going to say this right now. Any of you radical barbs that call yourselves trying to pop in my comments with nonsense and foolishness, if you disagree with something that I have to say, your comments will be deleted. I'm not doing that with y'all. I'm not playing with y'all. I just want to make that very clear, because anytime someone has anything to say about Nicki Minaj that is not always positive, y'all come out the woodworks acting like lunatics. I'm doing this video only because I was requested to. Outside of that, I wouldn't even mention her because y'all are crazed psychopaths. So let's get into Nicki Minaj style over the years. First, let me start by saying that Nicki Minaj has always been beautiful. That is the one thing that she always had going for her. Secondly, she went and got, the plastic surgery on her boobs and her butt, which was not uncommon amongst rap girlies, video vixens, and things like that. But she was one of the more kind of girls in the new age era that made plastic surgery a lot more mainstream. Now, for her overall style, Nicki had a corny style coming out. People may feel a way about that, but it was very corny. And they couldn't really quite figure out where to place her at first. But the one thing that I will respect about Nicki is that she understood that she needed something. So before because her style has been such a journey, but initially she had the hair. First, she had them skimpy bangs, which I wasn't really a fan of. But then she went and got the fuller bangs and used to do the black hair with the pink underneath, which, that actually did trend. And like I said, it wasn't the most fashion savvy, if you will. But we also have to notate that Nicki Minaj, the bulk of her fan base were teenage girls. Teenage girls or very early college age girls. So that hair would be very trendy for them. And then she started with the Barbie chains and stuff like that, and the double bras that she used to wear. But then her style slowly started to transition into something else, which I think we all know what I'm about to get into. If you are old enough to know that everyone knows that Lil Kim was the original Black Barbie dressed in Bulgari, we all know that. I think one of the biggest blunders and mistakes from Nicki's team was mirroring her style so closely to Lil Kim's. And I think this is a good example of what not to do. Although, again, I think these are both amazing women in the rap industry. I think they both have broken barriers and things like this. But I think this was just an ideal example of what not to do, which kind of is an example of when you go over the line of being inspired and you go in straight imitation territory. And I think Nicki Minaj had so much potential, and I think it's very unfortunate that they thought the only way that they could properly market her was to over-sexualize her. And, Lil Kim always had that type of sexual fashion-forward style that worked for her. And I think a lot of that got fueled into Nicki's image after the black and pink hair, and which led to a feud between her and Kim, which left for a very awkward situation. And from both sides, I kind of understand they were Nicki, where you were inspired and your team it wasn't really many options of rap girlies that really could have been on Nicki Minaj's mood board to kind of mirror her style after. But I think the misstep happened when they didn't turn those looks into Nicki own looks. It was just very blatant copying. And from Kim's perspective, I can understand and see it as well, because Kim always got a lot of pushback about the things she did, the plastic surgery. A lot of people like to say Nicki was like one of the first girls that got surgery. And it was like, no, Kim actually did that. And Kim to this day still gets a bunch of pushback about the surgeries that she's gotten. But when Nicki did it, it was deemed as okay. Also the fashion looks she got a lot of pushback for. But then when Nicki was wearing looks that Kim already did, people were praising Nicki but had issues with Kim. And then the biggest issue of it all, we know I love Kim Down, but we all know that there are some deep-seated issues of colorism there based off of, her history with men and things like that, and the industry overall. So I think it was also another chip on the shoulder where it's like when this brown skinned girl from New York was doing all these looks, y'all had a lot to say, but then this light-skinned girl who has, somewhat racially ambiguous features, and that's Caribbean, she's doing it, it's okay, and everybody's acting like it's so innovative and stuff like that. So I understand from both sides in perspectives, but I would highly recommend against any new artists doing this. Like, I feel like a mood board is one thing, but you are always supposed to interpret a style to make it your own. And the fact that the comparisons were just so close and there weren't enough changes being done, it was just blatant copying. I don't know, I think this had to be the worst period in fashion for Nicki, and not necessarily because the pieces that she was selecting, but because it was just flat out copying someone else's styles. And I think it hurt her more than it helped her. And because even now it's still a part of her legacy, where I think if her team would have just started with Kim and then, like I said, made the style her own for Nicki, I don't even think this would still even be a part of the conversation or so much of a stamp and staple in her fashion evolution in her career. The next Nicki era was like the Harajuku girl, Barbie, avant-garde-esque type of fashion. And it's no other way to put this, but it was bad. It was bad. Between the wigs and the outfits, it was bad. However, I think context has to be included in this fashion period for her. Of, again, her fan base was mostly teenage girls, college girls, and the gay community. So that explains a lot about these looks. Also, I think it was a drastic shift. I think she was successful in shifting the narrative from she's copying Kim, she dresses like Kim, to just doing something that was just so out there. And a lot of this was happening at the same time as Lady Gaga. So it just was the times, but damn, these looks were horrible. Whew, they were bad. But they were fun to look at the time. And I don't know. I wonder what she thinks of this period of fashion. Like, when she looks back at some of these pictures, how does she feel? Because I think it was successful as far as the marketing and getting her in that mainstream category, solidifying her in that rap pop-esque type of category, and getting her on a lot of these red carpets and keeping her name in the headlines and keeping her name in the fashion conversation. Not the fashion conversation, let me correct it. Keeping her name in the conversation. Because, outside of Halloween, nobody wanted to recreate these looks. Unless, again, like I said, you were like a teenager or a girl that was very early on in her college journey. But, Nicki looked crazy as hell. And like the wigs, you just look back at the wigs and makeup and you'd be like, Nicki, what the hell? But listen, she got a lot of success from it and a huge fan base from this era in her fashion. Nicki Minaj dating Meek Mill is the best thing she could have ever did for her fashion. This is one of my favorite fashion redemption stories to tell. Meek Mill basically turned Nicki Minaj into an Uptown Philly chick. That's what he did. Philly people, we are very particular. We do not like to be embarrassed. And we do not like a lot of goofy shit. I don't usually curse in these videos, but it was no other way to describe that. All them crazy wigs and them colors and all that shit that she was doing, Meek straight did that shit and literally turned her into an Uptown Philly chick. Now, and he gave her some swag because Nicki didn't have no swag about her. Like, it's like, yeah, she was cute. She had the cute body. She wore them crazy colors and stuff like that. But that traditional New York swagger that you usually see on a lot of the New York girlies, she didn't have. And I don't know if it was because of what part of New York she was from or because of the Caribbean household that she came from. But she just was somebody that did not have that swag that, like I said, the most of the New York girls, especially them 90s New York girls, like, she don't have that. And Meek gave her that. And it was the best she ever looked. And it really set the tone for all the fashion that came with her after this period. Just like the simple hair. We finally started to see her real hair. We seen her in the bust-down middle parts, and we started to see her flex her money in the sense of like the designer pieces that she will wear, but it was done in a very Philly way. Like, I'm telling y'all, if y'all know Philly fashion, especially around this time, and seeing how Philly girls was dressing and how we did our hair and stuff like that, that is what Nicki was looking like. He even had her on the back of dirt bikes and everything. And this is really when girls started to want to look like Nicki. Like, outside of the bodies, but I mean, like, her fan base won't stop talking about the 40-inch bust downs and stuff like that, baby. All that y'all hype about, that's a Philly girl swag. Like, the designer, the heels, like, everything that she did during this time was just so iconic. And people give Meek so much flack, especially her fan base. I don't like the way they really talk about him, and they be trying to clown him and be saying so much, but literally everything that y'all started to love about Nicki's fashion is because of Meek Mill. And I just spoke about that in the Beyonce video, like, where it's like there are a lot of men who play an influence in the fashion trajectory of the women that they date. And the same how Jay-Z pretty much curated Beyonce going into their sex symbol, like brick house type of lane, I feel like Meek kind of got Nicki back into that, like, bad bitch lane. Like, take all that goofy shit off. Like, you're naturally pretty. Let's show that. Stop with the goofy ass makeup. Let's stop all the colorful wigs. Let's get you in some natural colors in your hair. Let's get you in some clothes that's going to show off your body. And then it got back to like, damn, Nicki fine. Nicki this. It went back to that type of conversation. So even when that relationship was done and she started dating Nas and all that, it was just like, Nicki fine. Like, it was back to that, like, kind of like the conversation that started when she first came into the industry, and it shifted because, of course, all the Lil Kim stuff, and then she started dressing pretty much like a clown, and so you weren't really seeing how beautiful she was and seeing that the body was tea and all that because she was in all that buffoonery, and now you started seeing it again, and it's like, okay, and she still hold on to it. That's what I don't understand why Meek gets so much backlash compared to this, because she held on to the swag. She held on to it. Even if you look at her Met Gala looks now, like, they're drastically different from the other looks she used to do on red carpets and how she wears her hair now. You know, all of it. Outside of when she did that Barbie things, and what other song that came out? It was a song that came out at that time when Tay started doing her hair and she had them colorful wigs. Outside of that, Nicki has still held on to the swag that Meek gave her. She still uses that as an anchor. She does. And again, I don't understand why her fan base gives him so much backlash when this is literally one of y'all legit favorite time periods of her, regardless if y'all want to admit it or not. Overall, Nicki Minaj style now, I don't think she has made any more like innovative strides. I think a lot of it is just nods to her old style, but just in a mature way. Like you see a lot of, sometimes she'll pop out with the pink or the blonde hair, and sometimes she'll hop out with the eccentric outfits, but they won't be as crazy as they used to be. And again, she does a lot more of the natural glam and things that are more flattering to her physique. And like she holds on to that wing liner, honey. That's her favorite. That's her signature when it comes to the makeup. And you still see her in the heavy designer handbag or shoes and pieces. She still tries to lean into that, and you see her not at her like hair colors like how she used to do. So I think that's pretty much like what her comfort zone is, like I think she really feels at home and more in that natural space, but to appease her fan base, especially when she goes on tours and stuff like that. And I guess to see if she could do old looks better, like I said, you see nods at the looks that she used to do. And I think that's probably where she's going to stop at this point, because I think Nicki is either late 30s or very early 40s. And I think by that point, you kind of know who you are and what you like and what you don't like. So I think that's the style that works for her. So that concludes the episode of Nicki Minaj Style Evolution. You can shop with me on LTK if you like my style boards. You also can book styling services with me at www.ashleyaleah.com. You can shop my boutique at richbitchcollection.com. And I will see you guys in the next episode.